We're now recording and everyone from the lobby has been admitted.
Yeah, sure.
Thank you very much, Liana. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Northern Beaches Local Planning Panel meeting of the 17th of April 2024. My name's David Crofts and I'm the chair of the panel, and the other members of the panel today are Lisabella Esposito, who's an independent expert member, Heather Wharton, who is also an independent expert, and we have our community representative, Frank Bush, also present today. We have one item in the public session of the panel meeting, which is 45 Windora Avenue Freshwater, DA 2023/1433. However, before we start that, there's a number of procedural matters I need to go through. Firstly, as a sign of respect, the Northern Beaches Local Planning Panel acknowledges the traditional custodians of these lands upon which we gather and pays respect to Indigenous elders, both past, present and emerging. Apologies and declarations of interest. I don't have any apologies for the meeting, and I believe that all panel members have said that they don't have any, or they declare they don't have any conflicts of interest in relation to these matters coming up today. Just to confirm, Heather, is that the case?
I have no conflicts, thanks, David.
Frank?
I've got no conflicts, thank you.
Lisabella?
None from me.
And I have none as well. Thank you very much. The minutes of the previous meeting of the panel, which was held on the 3rd of April, the panel notes that these minutes have been adopted by the chairperson and have been posted on council's website. Just before we start, I'm not sure whether the public members who are present today have any knowledge of the panel and our function. Would you like me to quickly go through that or I can move straight to your item? It's up to you. Prefer an introduction or not?
Well,
No?
no.
Is that a yes, I heard?
No, I think everyone's would have done their due diligence on the panel.
Okay, we'll go straight to it then. Thank you very much. So I won't go through the functions of the panel. So the first item we have is, as I mentioned before, is DA 2023/1433, 45 Windora Avenue Freshwater, and that's for demolition works and constructions of a dwelling house, including a swimming pool. The only person I have lodged to speak today is Ryan Gill, the town planner, and I think Ryan's online. I can see you, Ryan. Just to check with Liana, you don't have any other speakers that have registered to speak?
No other registered speakers.
Okay, thank you very much. So the normal process we follow is that if you wish to make a presentation, you're quite welcome to, or alternatively, we'll open straight for any questions from members of the panel and points of clarification. It's really your call as to which way you'd like to go.
Yeah, I don't have a presentation prepared. I'm really just here to respond to any questions that you might have. So I'm Ryan Gill. I'm the consultant planner for the proponent. Read through the council assessment report, and we're comfortable with the recommended conditions set out therein. I've had a quick conversation with Claire from council prior to the meeting, so I'm aware that you've got a few questions that you're likely to throw my way, and I think I've got responses for them. So
okay, that's great. Yeah. And I might add, just for the benefit of everyone, what happens is once we've held this session, the panel then goes into a closed session to make its determination on the matter, and then that will be made available to you a few days after, once council's gone through its administrative processes. So I'd now like to open for any questions or points of clarification from panel members. Anyone want to go first? on this one? No? Okay, I might just ask.
I will ask.
Sorry, Heather, you're frozen.
Sorry, I
Oh, no,
just
you're
dropped
back
out.
again. Yep, go
Back
on.
now, sorry.
Yeah, you go first.
We note that there are objections regarding view loss, and this was raised. We discussed this in our briefing earlier. That to have no view loss depends significantly on the height of the lift overrun. Do you know what the RL of the lift overrun is? It doesn't, or what the height of it is. It's not marked on the drawings, and if it did creep up more, if it wasn't built to that exact level, there could be impacts. So I was wondering if you had that information.
Yeah, I do. So the RL of the lift is RL 42.87. And I'm just looking at the drawing in front of me relative to the RL of the roof. It's only fractionally higher than the roof. So the RL of the roof is 42.69.
So what is that as a measurement then, the difference?
18 centimetres above the roof, 18 centimetres proud of the roof.
And was that shown on the drawing, that lift overrun, or how do you know what that is? I presume you've checked, but how do you know what that was?
Yeah, so the lift overrun is shown on the drawing, but the RL is not. So I've spoken to Claire. I think we can either update the drawing or that can be introduced as a condition, the max RL of the lift overrun. It was modelled into the view loss analysis. There's a couple of wireframes in the planning report, and you'll see the projection, the lift overrun in that wireframe.
But what informed you to say that it's going to be RL 42.87?
Oh, the architect, and I gather that's based on the specs for the lift.
Okay.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Thank you. Any other questions, Heather, while you're online at the moment?
No,
No?
I'm good.
Anyone else?
David, do we want to raise the question of excavation?
Yes. Would you like me to raise the issue?
Yes, please.
Okay. I'm just a little concerned about the issue of excavation. Quite clearly, with this this development, there is a significant amount of excavation work proposed, and that probably will lead to a fair amount of shoring up work that's required. The detail we have on the shoring up work appears to be quite cursory. It's shown on the plans as just showing the area where there's shoring, but we're not quite sure what. And I believe it only shows, I think in the narrative, refers to about 1 metre of shoring. I may be incorrect there, but we're concerned, one, that there's not enough detail there to give us a sense of surety about that aspect of the development or the construction. And secondly, I did have the opportunity to site the underneath area of the property immediately to the east. And the geology, as a layman, even though I've got a science degree which did include some geology, but I'm not a geologist or geotechnical expert. Anyway, the site appears to be somewhat more complex than the geotech report indicates, because the geotech report indicates that that there's essentially an overlay, or I think of clay and loam, and then it goes into sandstone, speaking roughly, and then there are a number of I'll call them bores for want of a better word, that were done to check that, but they basically stopped when the auger hit refusal point, which was about 2 metres or so. My concern is below that, and I do note the geotech report refers to the geotechnical expert checking after every 1.5 metres of excavation or so. But I guess my concern is the amount of detail we have at the moment about that. Are you able to shed a bit more light on the subject, please?
Yeah, we can. So in terms of the detail you're after, is it more detail around subsurface conditions or the piling system?
It's actually both. One's the shoring up, which we probably want technical detail provided back to council at a greater extent than we've got at the moment. But the second point relates to subsurface conditions.
So in terms of the piling system or the shoring system that's proposed, it's a contiguous wall piling system, and I'm speaking from a layman's perspective here because I'm not a structural engineer, but my understanding of how that system is implemented is that there's an auger that drills to the depth of the excavation. It's as it comes out, it pours the pile, and it does that every other pile around the perimeter of the building, and then it goes back and it fills in the gaps. And it's not until all those piles are implemented in place and set that the excavation occurs. So this method of excavation, we're told, is the most suitable for this site and this project. So the architect has been in discussions with a structural engineer and the geotech, and that's the preliminary advice we've had back from those specialists. It would be detailed thoroughly prior to CC, obviously. That information would have to be supplied with the construction certificate application.
So given that there's some unknowns in the subsurface, how do they know how deep to take the piles? Or how will they determine that?
Well, they'll need to go to the depth of the excavation,
Yes.
which based on the geotechnical input is beyond the rock stratum. So you'll be going into rock to the depth of the excavation. So you'll be founding the piles on rock.
My concern, Ryan, sorry, David, have you finished?
No, yes, I have. Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, was that because we don't have the engineering drawings of the shoring, we have a very simplistic diagram, which is, so we don't know how wide it is, the shoring that's required, and then the setback required from the boundaries. And I just thought that may have implications on the lower ground, like in the basement floor plan. So we're being asked to look at a basement floor plan that could actually change once those shoring engineering diagrams are actually, there's been more investigation in that area. What do you have to say to that? Have you got those diagrams prepared?
So I think what you're saying is conceivably the specs around the piling system might change. For example, the width of the piles might be wider once we've done additional subsurface investigation.
That's right.
And that might consequently mean the garage floor plate has to compress.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And therefore there's going to be this issue of you know, that you're going to have to come back and do a mod. So it would be good to have that information up front so we can understand that it can be done and whether it actually has an impact on the floor plate of the basement level. And so it affects more than the basement because part of the other level is underground as well. So it actually has an effect on the gross floor area. It's affecting a number of factors.
In the event that the piles have to be larger than we've specified there. So I think as shown on the drawing, the subsurface wall is offset from the property boundaries by a metre, and then the piling would occur between the external wall and the property boundary. So as long as the piles aren't wider than a metre in diameter, I don't think it's going to be the case that it'll have to compress the floor plate of the basement or lower ground floor. But the issue in terms of producing that information is that we'd have to undertake additional subsurface investigation to confirm that this is the best approach to excavation and the most sensible piling system on this site. And we can't undertake that investigation thoroughly until the dwelling's knocked down. So it's a bit of a chicken and the egg kind of scenario. I've just got a text through from the architect that says the advice from the structural engineer on the maximum pile diameter is 600 mil worst case.
Do you not have access? Do you not have access in the back courtyard to do the testing there, where the paved area currently is? When I'm looking at the survey plan.
Yeah, at the rear of the site between the dwelling and the pool,
Mm-hmm.
that'd be a location where further testing could be undertaken. I suppose the question would be whether or not they can get the equipment they need to do the testing up the side passage into that area. I suppose the response is I'm not sure whether that's possible or not. But the advice that I've had is that once the dwelling's gone, that's when the geotech will get back out onto site, and whatever they discover in terms of subsurface conditions, that'll consequently inform the piling system and excavation.
On the drawings where you've shown the metre setback now, what assumption has been made as to how wide the pilings are on those drawings? Because there's the double garage. So as Lisa Bella's noted, if you have, well, for example, if you're saying possibly 600 millimetre wide piling on both sides, you are shrinking your garage considerably, as well as the rest of the space.
It also affects the next level with the media room and the ensuite. Because it's going through.
Can I just ask a question there? Ryan, my understanding is you said that you'd have effectively the property boundary and then the wall of the basement would be, you know, let's say no closer than a metre to the side boundary, and that any piling would actually be between the two. Is that correct?
That's right. Yeah.
So it wouldn't impinge on the floor space of the garage.
No, that's the point I'm trying to make. So as documented, they're 450 mil in diameter, and the structural engineers advised that utilising this system, depending on subsurface conditions, the maximum diameter of those piles would be 600 mil. But that wouldn't force the piles toward the centre of the site and compress the floor plate. That'll just chew up slightly more of the side setback area.
But that won't have been approved. A side setback of a metre has been approved.
To the external wall of the building.
No, but also below ground. We've considered the setback of the basement area.
Well, that's what's shown on the drawings. That's what we're seeking approval for.
Sorry, that less than a metre setback is shown on the drawings for the shoring?
Yeah, so if you look at DA
Yes.
303, sheet 303, for example, that shows a section through the building. So the building, external wall of the building, including the subsurface wall, is offset a metre from the property boundary. And then the piling system is between that wall and the property boundary.
Sorry, what plan number?
Yeah, what sheet are we on?
DA 303.
DA 303.
Are we able to bring it up by any chance, planning people?
Oh yes, I can see what's going on.
Yes,
Claire?
what was it that you wanted me to bring up?
Excuse me for a moment. Claire, are you in a position to bring that one up, please? DA 303. Can you share the screen?
Yep, I'm just on it now.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I can. Can you just are you able to just increase that in the particularly that's it? Perfect. Thank you.
I see. So the shorings inside the meter.
But the issue I have, have these been like certified by an engineer? Because these plans have been, have you been informed by an engineer to prepare these diagrams?
Yeah, the system has been recommended by a structural engineer based on the geotechnical advice that we've got currently. We'd started with a plenum design, and we've reverted to this contiguous pile system on the advice of the structural engineer.
Any more questions on that aspect at the moment? So can I, in summary, the piles do go into that 1 metre setback area between the property boundary and where the walls are shown of those I call them basement areas, for want of a better word. That prior to doing that, once the dwelling is demolished, you'd be proposing to do additional geotechnical work to establish at a greater depth than the existing geotech study can what the conditions are underneath, and that would then determine the diameter of the piles, and which I understand is, you said 600 mils diameter worst case. Do I have that right? Is that correct in summary?
That's right. I mean, that's a typical kind of sequence of actions. You'll have your preliminary geotech, and that'll inform a preliminary substructure system. And then, you know, once you've got your development consent, you'd have to document that thoroughly. And in this case, it would involve further geotechnical investigation to confirm that this is the best system, and that'll subsequently be designed and supplied with the CC documentation.
Yes, just having a look through the geotech. Give me a second, please.
And Ryan, have you had your structural engineer prepare those drawings?
No, they haven't done any drawings at this stage, but they have been in dialogue with the architect, which is why the system evolved during the course of the assessment.
Okay, thank you.
I guess my concern is that the geotech report that I'm viewing at the moment, unless I've missed something, doesn't go through that sequence of events to define the how you determine what shoring system you're not well, potentially what one you'd use, but you know how wide the diameter of the shoring system, each pile that you're referring to, would be, and indeed doesn't even allude to that sort of system at all, even though I understand they're not an engineer. So it's sort of a bit hard from our perspective, because we perhaps not as well informed as we could or should be.
Yeah.
And then there is the potential for this further analysis by the engineer to affect the floor plate that you're asking the panel to consider today?
I think we just need to I guess, post that as a comment of consideration. Frank or anyone, you had looked like you might have had a question earlier. Was that just about geotech, Frank?
Yes, it was, and it's pretty much been covered. Yeah.
Do we have any more questions at all? Anyone? Thanks, Liana. You can stop the screen sharing, please. So Ryan, is there anything else that you would like to say at this point before I close this part of the session?
I think Ryan's frozen.
Yes, I think in the process of you're still logged in, Brian, but you've sort of disappeared from the system. We might just wait a few seconds while you might even be worthwhile logging in and out again. I know you might. Brian, are you able to say some words so at least we know that you can hear us?
No, it's coming in.
It's gone, yeah.
Oh, I'm back. Sorry about that.
Oh, you're back on another
He's here
line.
twice.
Yeah, you're here twice. So you've been cloned. So Ryan, what I was saying, I don't know if you heard me, but there's no more questions or comments from the panel at this stage. Have you got any closing remarks you'd like to make before I close this part of the meeting, please?
Yeah, just in terms of the excavation, I suppose the sequence of steps would be that the structural engineer would inform the geotech what additional information, subsurface information they'd need to make an informed decision as to what is the best excavation and piling system to adopt in this case. So the two will kind of work hand in hand. One will inform the other. I don't think it'll be the case that the uncertainty around the piling system means there's a risk that the floor plates that we're proposing will change. As I say, as a worst case scenario, if this is the piling, if this is the system that's used, the pile diameter will just change, and that'll eat into the side setback slightly more than is shown on the drawing. But the floor plates themselves wouldn't need to be compressed.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, can I thank you all, and thank you, Ryan, for responding to our questions. So I'm now closing this part of the meeting, which is the only public item we have today. So just for the public record, we have 3 non-public meeting items, and they are because of the nature of those items in terms of not reaching the criteria for needing to be in the public realm. And they relate to DA 2023/0951, which is the Royal Motor Yacht Club at Prince Alfred Parade, Newport. The second one is DA 2023/1392, which is 16 and 20 Homestead Avenue, Collaroy. And the third one in the non-public session is DA 2023/1903, 59A Robin Avenue in Manly. The details of those particular items can be found in the panel's papers, which are on Council's website, if anyone's interested. And the determination of those matters will be considered by the panel in closed session this afternoon. And the outcome of that determination will be available in a few days directly from Council. So once again, thank you for attending the meeting, and I'd like now to close the meeting. Can I ask panel members to stay online though for a few minutes? Thank you. So anyone who's not a panel member, if you could log off now.